Hello from TAMIU Advancing Research and Curriculum. My name is Franco Samora, the TAMIU ARC Writing Consultant, here to help all graduate students with their writing needs. Today we will be finishing our long-awaited guide on Chicago Style 17th edition and Turabian Style 9th edition. In this, part 2 of our Chicago Style guide, we will be covering the two documentation styles, which are author date style and notes and bibliography style. To learn more about Chicago Style's general formatting rules, in-text citations, bibliographies, and other important information on this unique citation style, see Part 1 of our Chicago Style Guide video series. And check out more videos from TAMIU ARC on other citation guides and writing tips for graduate students. As we have alluded to previously, Chicago Style has two unique documentation styles, or two different ways to work with citations. Style 1 is called Notes and Bibliography style, and it is sometimes written with a hyphen. Notes and bibliography style seems to be preferred by humanities fields such as literature, history, and the arts. This is because notes and bibliography style is the more flexible of the two styles, and it can accommodate unusual sources. The second documentation style is called author date, and it is typically preferred by social science and science fields, most likely due to its emphasis on publication years, which are always placed directly in its in-text citations. However, even though these two styles are different, they are both aspects of Chicago Style as a whole, and either one of them might be requested by any kind of instructor in an academic setting. Let's keep talking about Documentation Style 1, or Notes Bibliography style. The main feature of this Chicago style is its use of notes system of citation. Notes can refer to either footnotes, small notations that are placed at the bottom of a given page where a citation occurs, or endnotes, which are notations that occur at the end of a paper, chapter, section of writing, depending on its length. Endnotes and footnotes are somewhat similar to more traditional bibliographies, although Notes Bibliography style, as its name implies, may also have a standalone bibliography section to collect citations and references, just like similar academic styles do. A bibliography is not usually required with this style, although sometimes instructors will request one. Although footnotes and endnotes are still prevalent in academic writing with Chicago style, endnotes seem to be becoming the more popular of the two options. What else do you need to know about footnotes and endnotes? Footnotes and endnotes are the main ways that Chicago style uses its in-text citations. Footnotes appear at the bottom of the page where in-text citations appear. Endnotes appear collected on a separate page at the end of a document, not unlike a bibliography. Notes can either be presented as a full note or a short note. The kind of note you use depends on your discipline and field. Always check with your instructor to see which is the preferred method for your source. Notes have a number that corresponds to their citation. At the end of an in-text citation, the number appears as a superscript. In this style, a separate bibliography may appear after the endnote page. Footnotes appear at the bottom of a given page where the superscript reference appears. On the right, I've included an example of what footnotes would look like at the bottom of a page. One advantage of footnotes is that they allow readers to view the citation information right away. Footnotes can also sometimes be places where authors can make comments and observations about the text that they feel is incidental or interesting, although perhaps not as immediately relevant to the text that they are writing. What about endnotes? Endnotes appear at the end of a document before the optional bibliography page in Notes Bibliography style. On the right, I've included an example of endnotes. An advantage of endnotes is that they collect all the document's references in one convenient place. The endnotes are titled with the heading Notes in Chicago Style's Notes Bibliography style. Both footnotes and endnotes use a numbering system. Notes correspond with a particular number, and that number needs to match between the superscript and the corresponding number in the footnote or endnote section. It is very important to note that this number does not reset between pages or sections of a paper. Likewise, notes are not reused between pages. If a reference is made using a superscript on page 1, the superscript should not be reused again. All new notes should follow the previous notes in consecutive order, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Note that in a book-length work such as a thesis or dissertation, individual chapters might have their numbers restart between chapters. Usually when this is the case, each individual chapter will have its own EndNotes section, if the chapters are using EndNotes. On the right, you can see where the superscript button appears in Microsoft Word. References and notes can come in several varieties and can be either full or short. This is the general layout for footnotes. This example is for a chapter in a book reference. Note the difference between full notes and short notes. This is a specific example using the footnote layout. This reference is for a chapter in a book. Again, see the difference between a full note and a short note? Short notes are typically used when the full note has already been introduced in the document. The word ebed is an abbreviation of the Latin word ebidem, which means in the same place. In previous editions of Chicago Manual of Style, ebed was used in note sections to indicate that a source came from the same place as the previous note source. This was usually done to save space. However, in the 17th edition of Chicago Style, ebed is now discouraged, and short notes are used instead. However, if you must use ebed, know that if you cite the same source with a new page number, you should add a comma and the new page number. Formatting and inserting endnotes and footnotes is pretty easy with Microsoft Word. Notes can be added manually using superscript numbers and footnote settings. They can also be added automatically using the reference menu in Microsoft Word. Important: do not place multiple notes in the same point of the text, such as 1, 2, 3, etc. Instead, combine citations into one note using a semicolon. Here's an example of that. Let's look at some general examples of notes. Notes share some similarities with typical bibliography page references, although they each have their own needs and sets of rules. This is a sampling of notes that are commonly found in Chicago Style, although, of course, this list is not exhaustive. For complete rules or specific examples, check out the Chicago Manual of Style. For all notes, authors' names are printed first name and last name. Commas are used to separate most information, and a set order is used for each piece of information. Just like with any other citation, be sure that you are using the correct form and including as much accurate information as you can find. Now you try. Pause the video and using the previous slide's guide on notes, create notes for each of these examples. Ready? Here are some specific examples of notes. We recommend you practice to fully become familiar with Chicago Style notes. Now that we've talked about notes and bibliography style for Chicago Style, let's talk about the author date system, which is Chicago Style's other documentation style. The author date style uses both in-text citations and a bibliography page. This style is sometimes called documentation style too, in the Chicago Manual of Style. Unlike the notes and bibliography style, which uses a numerical system, this style's in-text citations use parenthetical citations more akin to APA, ASA, or other author date referencing styles. The bibliography in this author date system is a required element titled References. Let's take a closer look at author date styles in-text citations. The general format for in-text citations include an author's last name, the year, and a page number if one is available. Note that there is no comma between the author's name and the year, but there is one after the year before the page number. When creating an in-text citation with multiple authors, include the word "and" between two authors, include commas for 3 authors, and if you have 4 or more authors, include the text "et al", meaning "and others". The "et al" is used after the first author's name, shortening citations with 4 or more authors immediately. Organizations may also be used in place of an author's name, although abbreviations are discouraged. If author information is missing or unlisted, determine if an organization can be used instead. If no organization can be used, the title of the work can be used instead. The title of a work as a citation name can even be shortened, as long as the first word matches the reference list entry. Here are some more examples of in-text citations. You will find that Chicago-style in-text citations are similar to MLA or APA-style in-text citations, although, naturally, Chicago Style employs its own set of rules for works with multiple authors one author, two authors, etc. It even has its own rules for indirect citations. Be sure to practice your Chicago-style in-text citations so that you can use them correctly. Let's finish up by clearing up information about bibliographies. Do you need a bibliography or not? Both Notes-Bibliography and author date styles may use a bibliography, although it is not required in the author date style. Author date style bibliographies use the title references. Notes and bibliography style use the title bibliography instead. Here are some guidelines that are common between documentation style 1 and 2 references or bibliography. Start a list on a new page. Type the title at the top, centered. Set the first line of the references at the left margin, and indent all lines beneath that reference using hanging indent format. Alphabetize the references by author's last name or the title of the work. For authors from Eastern countries, use the format that the author used in their published work. Alphabetize entries by letter. Nothing precedes something, so for example, Brown would go before Browning. Names beginning with Mac or Mick should be alphabetized as they are spelled. References by the same author should be arranged chronologically, with the earliest appearing first. A single authored work should be placed before a multi-authored work that begins with the same author. References by the same author or multiple authors in the same order should be alphabetized by title. Use 3 em dashes in place of a repeated author's name. Works with no author should be alphabetized by title, with the title in the author position. Use anonymous only when the work is signed anonymously. And alphabetize a group or organization name as an author by the first significant word. Here are the examples of the bibliography references page again. Recall from our Part 1 video of the Chicago Guide that references each have their own forms and needs depending on the type of source you are trying to reference. Here are some examples of bibliography references with their information filled in. Practice, practice, practice in order to know which elements are needed for any given Chicago-style reference. One last thing you should be aware of when you are looking at Chicago's 2 different documentation styles is that although notes and bibliography references can be quite similar to each other, even having different needs depending on different kinds of sources, notes and references are different from each other. For example, in notes, authors' names are listed first to last, and in bibliographies, they are listed last comma first. Notes tend to use periods to separate information, whereas bibliographies tend to use commas. There are many other differences you should be aware of too. Thanks for watching our final guide on Chicago style. For more information, check out the Chicago Manual Style, as well as our Chicago Style Guide Part 1, our APA Guide, and our MLA Guide. And check out our other videos on research and writing tips for graduate students. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and see our official webpage for more writing support. Stay safe, stay smart, and visit ARC.